Gentleman from Massachusetts yields back. I recognize the gentlewoman from Missouri, Ms. Wagner, who chairs our Capital Markets Subcommittee. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Secretary Bessent. I find your answers to be quite clear, substantive, and as always, well-informed. Thank you for being here. Early, sir, in your tenure as Treasury Secretary, you said, and you touched on it here today, and I quote, "For the last 4 decades, Wall Street has grown wealthier than ever before, and it can continue to grow and do well. But for the next 4 years, it's Main Street's turn. It's Main Street's turn to hire workers. It's Main Street's turn to drive investment. And it's Main Street's turn to restore the American dream." And as chair of the Capital Markets Committee, I could not agree more, sir. For too long, outdated securities laws have limited everyday Americans' ability to invest in innovative startups. At the same time, the number of companies listed on public markets continues to shrink. And as a result, everyday Americans in Missouri's 2nd congressional district that I have the honor to represent have fewer opportunities to invest toward major life goals, including owning a home, paying for their children's education, or securing a dignified retirement. Main Street businesses across the Midwest and other regions of our country are overlooked, as venture funding and capital raising opportunities remain largely concentrated on the coast. That is why I have made it a priority to facilitate capital formation and empower entrepreneurs and small businesses across America. Just weeks ago, Mr. Secretary, December 11th to be exact, the House passed my INVEST Act, a bipartisan package of 22 bills focused on 3 goals: expanding access to capital for small businesses, increasing opportunities for everyday investors, and strengthening our public markets. Capital formation is the lifeblood of American economic growth and prosperity. Our capital markets are indeed the deepest and most liquid in the world, and the INVEST Act will ensure that they remain among the greatest strengths for decades to come. I look forward to continuing to work with you and the administration to advance these priorities and unleash the power of our capital markets. Secretary Bessent, in your view, what are the largest barriers to capital formation for a small business?
Congresswoman, I look forward to working with you. And I think I would bifurcate that. Most small businesses are individuals. And
Correct.
For many individuals, we have learned that most of them, 38% of Americans, do not own equities. So with the Trump accounts, which will give every child $1,000 seed finance, every American will be invested in a low-cost index fund. Every American will have a share of our great innovative economy. For small businesses, it is often, I would say, it is a duality of regulatory and access to finance. Americans are entrepreneurial. We want to get out and form businesses. And I believe that with the confidence of being able to do that, and what President Trump's agenda has done, businesses now have tax certainty with the One Big Beautiful Bill, that 100% deductibility of equipment, of factories, and of ag structures. We have energy certainty with our energy dominance, and we have regulatory certainty as we are pulling back the regulatory morass that was highly harmful to both small and large business.
Absolutely, and as global competition for capital intensifies, the United States risks falling behind if our public markets also, I must say, remain costly or inaccessible for growing companies. How important is capital formation reform, like the reforms included in the INVEST Act? Again, 22 bipartisan bills that we brought to the floor with the support of 87 Democrats. How important are these reforms to maintaining U.S. economic leadership and long-term growth? Quickly, sir.
Congresswoman, they're vital, and what we have seen, as you correctly outlined, is since the early 2000s, the number of public companies available for Americans and indeed international investors to invest in has greatly diminished, and it has developed into a network of private assets.
Thank you. My time has expired. I have others that I will put forward for the record, and I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields back. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, who's the ranking member of our Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee. Mr. Green, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I ask that you recall Liberation Day, the day that President Trump announced tariffs. I ask that you recall that when he made this announcement, there was a sharp decline in the stock market. In fact, when he made the announcement, the NASDAQ experienced a 6% decline, the S&P 500 a decline of 11%. I ask that you also remember that some days later, the president announced that he was going to pause those tariffs. And when he indicated that he would pause the tariffs, the market then moved up. Do you recall these things, Mr. Secretary?
I recall them very well, Congressman.
Thank you. And I ask that you also recall, please, Mr. Secretary, that hours before the president announced the pause, he indicated by way of Truth Social, he has more than 50% ownership in Truth Social. It's a great time to buy DJT. That was his announcement on Truth Social. And in so doing, Truth Social had a value that moved up. In fact, Truth Social, which the president has a majority ownership, went up by $415 million. Now, here's what's interesting in this scenario. When he made that announcement and said it's a great time to buy DJT, that happens to be the symbol for his stock, DJT. I ask you kindly, and as one professional to another, Mr. Treasury Secretary, do you think that this should be investigated, the president's stock being linked to his Truth Social message, and that stock having gone up by some $415 million in a single day, and this is a stock that was doing very poorly prior to that, hadn't had a lot of success. Do you think that this should be investigated?
No, sir.
Kindly explain to me why we would not investigate the president making such an announcement as it relates to his stock and then reaping some $415 million as a potential capital.
Well, all Americans benefited from the rebound in the markets that day, and in fact, the rebound in the market after that was the fastest in market history.
Yes, it was. But here's what's interesting about your statement. You did not note, Mr. Secretary, that DJT had probably the sharpest increase on that day, $415 million, and that the president said, buy DJT, and that's what happened.
I'm unfamiliar with the exact text. Did he say buy DJT?
Yes, sir.
Did he said now
Yes,
is now is a good time to buy and have a salutation DJT?
Yes, sir. DJT immediately following, now is a good time to buy.
Well, those are his initials, as you said.
They are his initials, but it's also, do you agree that those are the symbol, that's the symbol for his stock?
I believe it is.
Okay. And do you believe that such a thing done openly and notoriously should not be investigated? Is that what you're telling the American people?
Sir, I believe that anything that is widely disseminated is widely disseminated and available to everyone.
Well, it was available to everyone, but what he said related to his stock could relate to something else, but to his stock. And here's the point, Secretary. Here's the point. I believe that any other president making this kind of move is almost a hustle. I don't want to say that about the president, but making this kind of move would at least be investigated. If you're going to allow the president to do this openly and notoriously, $415 million, what you're doing is giving him a license to move markets at will, make announcements, and reap benefits. He is literally hustling the United States stock market.